Hi, welcome back to my studio. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about how I ended up deciding that building a studio behind my house was the best option for me for the rest of my teaching career. So it was a long journey getting here, and I've taught in a lot of different situations. I've taught out of a big studio, working for someone else. That's how I started my career. And then I worked out of my apartment for a while. And then I got a small, very small, affordable space that was pretty funky and a little bit bigger, and I had room to expand. And from there I started to take on some trainers who wanted to come and work out of my space, so I started getting more trainers involved, and we got to the size where we needed a bigger space. So then I had a bigger studio, and I ran a big studio for a while with 10 trainers at one point. And then that was just too much for me. And I ended up going back to working for someone else's studio for a while. So I wouldn't have to handle all the administrative work, all the stress of making sure that all of my employees were covered before worrying about myself. It was just too much as a new mom at the time. And so I worked out of someone else's studio for a while. That ended up not working out so great for me in the long run. I think that what I needed to do was bigger than what that space could handle. And not necessarily the space itself, but the business model, the culture there. I needed to have a little bit more freedom and expansiveness in what I was doing. So that coincided with the pandemic, so we all taught from home on our computers, whatever we could do to keep things going. And so I ended up teaching out of a small home studio, just a tiny little home studio space in my basement. And all the while we were making plans to build this space behind our house. Which we finally did. We finally finished. It took about 4 years, and we finally finished it. And that's where we are now, in this studio here. So for me, the reason that this is the best model, and I know that building a studio, a gyrotonic training specific studio behind your home, is not an option for everyone. I've been teaching for a long time. I've been kind of working towards this for a long time, and have a partner that can support some of these bigger risks and investments. So I know that's not an option for everyone. But on some scale, you can think about ways that what I've done here would be applicable to what you're trying to think through for how you want your life to work and your training career to look and feel. The reason I wanted a space like this behind my home is that I wanted a quiet, serene space where I didn't have to worry about other trainers working while I was trying to teach. I could do really focused breath work, and it wouldn't be too loud. I wouldn't have to worry about scheduling my courses around other people's schedules, around studio schedules. But I did want it separate from my home. First, we didn't have space within the home to accommodate all I needed to do. And also, I just didn't really want people having to, come in through my house all the time. So building this separate space was really the best option. And really what I want to do long term, because I don't ever actually want to retire from teaching as time moves on. Maybe I want to teach a little less, but I still want to keep doing teacher trainings as long as I can, and maintaining a separate space with the overhead and all that just for that eventually wouldn't be feasible. So having a space on our property that has very little overhead to maintain, that really works well for me. I'm thinking really long-term here. The women in my family tend to live into their hundreds. My grandmother didn't retire until she was 96. So I'm thinking long-term teaching plans here, just to give you a little bit of context on how I'm framing this timeline for myself. One of the things that put me off of having a larger studio, one of the elements of that really made it not a long-term sustainable plan or lifestyle for me, was all of the management of people and all of the administrative work, and all of those things that just took away from my teaching focus and time. Now, ironically, I relaunched my dance company, so now I am managing people and doing admin and all of that again for a dance company, but that for me gives a little broader scope to my life and keeps me in a better balance than everything just focused on keeping one studio thriving and alive and all of the trainers busy and all of those aspects that go with running a big studio. So I have taken a lot of it back on, but in a different capacity. So I guess that's my own fault. One of the things that I found was not working for me and working for a bigger studio was that I didn't have as much control over my schedule, my teaching calendar, the studio environment. So I found it very loud, very distracting when I was trying to do very focused work with people, very challenging when we were trying to focus in a course setting. And then the number of hours that I had to teach private clients in order to sustain a living. Because when you're working for a bigger studio, part of the fee that the client pays goes to paying the administrative expenses of scheduling and booking and emailing clients and all of those things that go into running a studio and running a trainer's schedule. Someone else is probably doing that for you in a large studio situation, and that costs money. And so where does that money come from? It comes from the client fees, which means the trainer doesn't get as big a percentage of that session fee or class fee. Now, for some people, that's great because they don't want to do the administrative work. They'd rather have it handled by someone else. That's worth the trade-off for them, that they're giving some percentage of that revenue towards the administrative costs being handled for them. For me, it just meant too many teaching hours. So whatever I make in the studio, very little of that goes to overhead or administrative fees. Now I have to do some administrative work on my own, such as booking clients, emailing people back, and all of the things that go into coordinating and promoting my courses and my online videos and my online classes. I do have to do that, but it's not as much work as it would be supporting a whole studio, and I don't feel like I have to teach quite so many hours. Now, those of you who know me know that I still tend to teach a lot of hours, but I don't have to make my living. A lot of my issues now are admittedly self-inflicted. I just have a hard time not taking on extra courses, not taking on that extra session that somebody needs. I have a hard time with that just because I do love the work and I do love being able to support people through their journey as gyrotonic trainers or as gyrotonic students. I really love that, and so it's hard for me to say no to stuff that probably is a little much to take on. So I'm working on that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a future video because a friend of mine, Jody Randolph, gifted me with a coaching session. Now, I've not really ever been that much into coaching. It's something that a lot of my friends and colleagues do, but I've never really been interested in it for myself. But I had an intro session with Jody that she generously gifted to me just yesterday, and sometimes just saying some of the things out loud that are what are motivating or driving you, or trying to explain why you're doing some of the crazy things you're doing. Once you say them out loud, that can be really helpful to put it in perspective. So anyway, I'm planning to do another session with her, and I thought I might share some of that experience with you guys in the future, because it's been a long-standing process for me of finding that work-life balance. And part of the struggle, of course, is that I just put too much in. So I have the gyrotonic and gyrokinesis teaching that I do, and I'm artistic director for a dance company, and we started a new dance festival last year that is an annual event now. And I have a 15-year-old son who's a high-level soccer player, and that's really involved. And I have family obligations beyond that, and it's just a lot, and I take on too much. And then I've decided, of course, that I want to now sew all my own clothes. And yeah, everything I do is self-inflicted now. So I'm trying to work through some of that. But just because I don't always follow my own advice, I do know a lot of these things. I have figured a lot of this out, and I actually have solved a lot of the problems that I've faced in this industry and been able to forge for myself a really fulfilling career in this work. And I think some of the hurdles that I've navigated over the years, I've come up with some solutions or worked through or thought through things in ways that I think might be helpful to some of you that are facing the same issues. So I guess one thing that's important to do is to think through what it is that you love about this work and what it is that is not fulfilling in this work or feels like it pulls you away from your purpose within this work. Make sure that your teaching situation that you've set up for yourself is aligned with that. So if you are super entrepreneurial and running the big studio is your thing and your groove and you love that, that's great. But that's not the only measure of success as a trainer, that you have a big studio and lots of employees working for you in that studio. And if you are working out of a big studio for someone else, that could be a great fit for you. That could solve some of the problems that we face as trainers. That could give you the security and support and the structure that you need to build your career. But if that doesn't suit you and you feel like you're finding frustrations with that, what are those and what are the solutions to that? Also, you could be working from home and you could be lonely and you could feel like it's always a mess around you and the admin's too much work for you. And maybe the solution is you do need to find a situation where you're teaching with other people in a space that's maintained for you with an administrative support staff. Maybe that's works better for you. I think that sometimes we get so immersed in the frustrations and getting through the day-to-day of what we're doing, and we can start to feel burnt out, and we don't really have the time to sit back and reflect on, is it the whole career, the whole industry that's not suiting us or that's draining us? Or are there aspects of it that we can address and fix and really set up a teaching environment in which we can each thrive as individuals and, of course, also to thrive as a community of teachers? I know there are a lot of you that are teaching out there kind of individually, a little bit isolated from other trainers, and so that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this channel as well, is just to be a little bit of a support and a resource for those of you who may be teaching in a more isolated area where there aren't a lot of other trainers to talk to, or there aren't really any master trainers around, or you're teaching out of your home and you're just not encountering other trainers on a regular basis, and to find a greater community together here where we can work through some of the issues that come up for us. So are you content in your teaching situation? Do you feel like you found something that really suits you? Or are you feeling like there are frustrations that you're facing and that maybe you need to do a reevaluation and a little bit of a overhaul in how you're approaching your career? I'd love to be able to talk through some of the issues that are arising. Remembering there's so many ways that we can tailor this career for ourselves to support a really healthy, balanced life. So we can teach out of a big studio, we can teach out of a small studio, we can teach out of a collective where there's multiple trainers all paying in to support a space. We can possibly rent space from someone else on an hourly basis or on a regular monthly agreement. We can teach out of our homes, we can teach online, we can travel to other people's homes or businesses and teach there. There are so many different ways that we can do this. And so if it's not working for you, really spend some time thinking about what are the aspects that frustrate you, because there's probably another way to do it that works better for you. And that's going to be a different answer for everyone. There's no one right way to do this industry. And if you're just starting out, maybe you can think through these things ahead of time so that you don't get yourself into a situation that you feel is draining and doesn't suit you and your personality and your lifestyle. You can set your career up from the beginning in a way that's going to best support the lifestyle and the vision for your life that you have. So if you have any questions, please feel free to share them with me. If you have movement questions, I am addressing those through my live and on-demand video classes. And you can always message me with requests for classes that you'd like to see or issues that you'd like to be addressed in a movement class. I'm always open to what people are wanting and needing from those. I do take requests. So feel free to reach out about any of the issues that you are facing. All right, that's it for today. I'll talk to you all again soon. Thanks.